What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So here in a few months, Nintendo will be holding the Switch 2 experience. That's going to be a set of events that'll take place over the course of several weeks. And, well, they had a raffle to see who could get in. Well, the results are now published, so we'll take a look at that, as well as if I got in here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Ubisoft with some bad news when it comes to layoffs, as well as a studio closure. And we have Microsoft with Phil Spencer talking a bit about the Xbox Series S and how it's actually provided a bit of a benefit for them when it comes to development. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And we're going to start today with Rise of the Ronin. This came out last year on the PlayStation 5, and I played it a bit, and I did enjoy it. This is from Team Ninja and Koei Tecmo. The game itself being an open world, samurai action adventure style game with some RPG elements. I mean, there's a lot to do there, sure, but for me, the open world games, I will say, unless it grabs you immediately and pulls you all the way through, can get kind of fatiguing as you go along, but it is a fun game. And now it looks like it's heading to PC. We can see this posted up. This is over on Steam, and we can see it's coming out March 10th. They also put out a trailer going over this release, and there are a ton of features for the Steam version. 8K resolution support, by the way, at the top of the docket here. DirectX 12, ultimate support, ultra-wide and super ultra-wide monitor compatibility, which that, just based on this game alone, it had some sweeping vistas that would look really, really cool, especially with, of course, a nice setup there, a high-powered video card. Yeah, that could be really cool to see. Ray tracing support, 3D audio, 120 FPS support, customizable keyboard, mouse controls, Fidelity FX, super resolution, DLSS with NVIDIA, reflex support. Seems like they were doing a lot here with this port, this version of the game for PC, and of course, just coming basically a year exactly after the PlayStation 5 version came out, and that just seems to be the strategy, the MO for not only third parties, but seemingly more and more for Sony as well. So if you're curious about this one, seems like PC is going to get, I guess, then the ultimate version of it here in a couple of months. Also, we did have some news for Gears of War E-Day when it comes to a studio that will be co-developing the game along with Coalition, and well, they're a very familiar studio. They've been around the block a few times with this franchise. We can see this posted up over on their website. This is from People Can Fly. So they're honored to return to the world of Gears of War, a franchise deeply embedded in our studio's history, as lead developer of the iconic Gears of War Judgment, but then co-development partner on Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. They say, we have always been passionate about the series and its legacy. So really, if you think about it that way, it's not too shocking for them to come aboard here for Gears of War E-Day, although I guess some of the recent entries for the franchise, they were not part of that. But now it does make sense to bring them on board for E-Day, which is technically going before the original Gears of War. Seems like they're kind of embedded with that sort of time period and characters and even just play style in general. We'll see. I'm curious some of the wrinkles they'll be able to add in with Gears of War E-Day. Again, kind of going back in time as a prequel, but that seems like just from the trailer alone and some of the visual stuff the Coalition is doing here should look very, very impressive. Oh, and it looks like Sims fans have quite a bit of nostalgia to look forward to, I guess, really, if you've been around the franchise for a while now. We can see this posted up. This is over on Kotaku. They say fans of The Sims have their hopes up that the original 2 games will finally be remastered for modern platforms after Electronic Arts cryptically teased them in a new 25th anniversary promo video. First of all, ridiculous that it's been 25 years since the first Sims' release. Hey, happy to make everyone feel old on a Tuesday morning here. Kotaku understands that The Sims 1 and Sims 2 will both be re-released on PC before the end of the month, which is, that's in like a couple of days here. So I guess expect an announcement sometime this week for those games. So that'd be really cool to see. Again, for longtime Sims fans, I'm curious if there are any plans for them to bring these 2 titles, remaster titles, maybe to consoles. And I know I saw people immediately bring up the mouse functionality of the Switch 2, and I mean, yeah, these are the kind of games that I do immediately think of. It's like, oh, wait, Yeah, a mouse function that would technically work and actually fit in perfectly for The Sims 1 and 2. Although we did have Sims console versions back in the day. I remember playing it on like the PS2, on the GameCube and stuff that actually filled up I think you needed a bigger memory card for that one specifically, if I remember, on the GameCube. But still, it is cool to see again from a nostalgic side of things, because I'm really not into any of the new Sims games, but I definitely remember the Sims 1 and 2 from back in the day. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Switch 2 experience that will be starting 2 days after the Switch 2 Direct that everyone is basically just counting down the days now, because that's where we're going to find out everything, the big Switch 2 blowout, if you will. And the big thing people are curious about are going to be the games, because if anything else, if you look back on the first Switch when that came out, it had a very, very good first year. Like third parties, yes, but definitely with some of the first party releases. And that was a year where we had the big titles that were even there nominated for Game of the Year in 2017 with Super Mario Odyssey, as well as The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Well, this event was going to be following up that Direct, mostly so people can go hands-on with the system and play a bunch of games. They did this with the first Switch, and it was an interesting experience, even though everyone lined up basically to play Breath of the Wild, and they kind of looked around at like Skylanders, I remember was one, and 1-2 Switch was there, then Mario Kart, and they had it set up as like the plane from the trailer. We sat there like a plane and played Mario Kart. But now there's gonna be many, many more people who are interested in this, and like you can see over on their website now, they have in New York, Los Angeles, and Dallas. Those at least were the ones that I would have really been checking out, although New York probably would have been the one that would be the most reasonable for me to go to. But still, that would have been April 4th to the 6th. April 11th to 13th would have been Los Angeles. And then Dallas would have had this event April 25th to the 27th. The way it worked was you could register, and then it would be a drawing. And I did sign up to see. I threw my name in the hat to see if I would be able to get at least an entry here and try the Switch 2 out, and of course do video footage if allowed, which I assume it would be, as it was allowed with the Switch 1, and kind of talk about my thoughts about it with hands-on time. Unfortunately, that was not the case, so I did not get in, and I kind of looked around. I saw many people on the timeline talking about it over on Twitter X, like Bob Wolf didn't get in apparently. I saw Kit and Krista said that they applied at a bunch of them, which I only applied at one, but they applied even outside the US. They also didn't get in. Jeff Keighley was interesting because he definitely posted that he didn't get in. He made like a funny remark about it being like a bad day or something, and how he didn't get in. So Nintendo kind of snubbed him, I guess cold shouldered him there, but he deleted the tweet. So I don't know, maybe he had second thoughts about putting that out there in the world, but either way, plenty of people saw it. I did see though that Beat 'em Ups did get in, so I assume he'll have footage and some, I guess some impressions around the Switch 2 for the event there. Now, apparently to follow this up, they're doing like a wait list, so you can put your name in there, and I guess if some people aren't able to RSVP or show up, they can then pass the space on to the wait list, but apparently that's going to be first come, first serve, so if you were very interested in checking this out, you might as well throw your hat in there, or your name in the hat there, and see if that one works out. For me, it's like, okay, I'll just see how things go with the impressions, the hands-on time and stuff, and we'll kind of discuss it at that point. Apparently, guests can go with the people, but when I signed up, it asked specifically right then and there how many children may be coming with you, spouses, friends, anything. So it was like you had to kind of sign up immediately there and tell them how many people would be accompanying you with that initial sign up and ticket. So, hey, the big thing though, let me know down in the comments if you did get in or if you didn't get in, because I have a feeling there'll be many people who didn't and just a handful that did. It'll be really fun to see people's thoughts, impressions, and the biggest thing, which games they'll have announced for people to actually go hands-on and try out at the events. Next up, let's talk about Ubisoft, as we have some bad news coming out of the company, specifically with layoffs and a studio closure. We can see this posted up. This is over on Eurogamer, and in a response and statement to them, Ubisoft says, as part of our ongoing efforts to prioritize projects and reduce costs that ensure long-term stability at Ubisoft, we have announced targeted restructurings at Ubisoft Dusseldorf, Ubisoft Stockholm, and Ubisoft Reflections, and the permanent closure of Ubisoft Leamington site. Unfortunately, this should impact 185 employees overall. We are deeply grateful for their contributions and are committed to supporting them through the transition. Now, while we're seeing restructurings for many of these studios here, they haven't necessarily shut down. The big one, though, that they have shut down being Leamington. And if you look at that studio specifically, it seemed to be a support studio, and Ubisoft has a ton of people there at the company. I mean, if you look at the number of people they employ, it's something like 19,000 people. It's massive. So 185 people, I'm surprised they didn't play that off in terms of percentages, because that's one of the things these companies like to do is, oh, it's less than 1% of our, workforce, something like that. But in this case, 185 employees with Leamington being shut down. That was a support studio, though, who had worked on things like Tom Clancy's The Division series, and also assisted with Star Wars Outlaws, Skull and Bones, Far Cry 5, which we saw what happened with Star Wars Outlaws and Skull and Bones. Didn't seem like those were very successful, although Far Cry tends to sell well either way, and the Division series has been doing very well for them, as that does kind of skate in the vicinity of live service, and it seems like that, I guess, would be what the next one, the Division 3, will be lining up to do. But we talked about it before, and I'm sure we'll be talking about many times here going forward. Ubisoft, I think, is going to continue downsizing in general. I have concerns around how Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to do for them, just based on, I think, the built-up expectations internally. It's just, this game, Shadows, has to be some crazy Game of the Year contender, 95 or something on Metacritic, to where everyone's like, this is incredible, to really be able to overcome a lot of the discourse, and to be honest for it, a lot of the negativity around not only Assassin's Creed Shadows, but also just the Ubisoft brand, and to me, also, people's willingness to just wait for a sale. I'm sure they'd love to be able to capture as many $70 full price sales as possible. But I also think there's a core Assassin's Creed audience, and some of that will spill over into the mainstream. I just don't know if this is, going to be the release, the numbers, the glory, if you will, for them when it comes to the nominations and stuff for gaming. I don't think it's going to work out in that way for Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think it'll come out and it'll be a good game. Like, it'll be 86, 87, somewhere in there, but it's not 93, 94 to be like, this is a must-play title. You'll probably hear a lot of people say, it's good if you're a Assassin's Creed fan. If not, wait for $20 sale and move on with that. And that's going to be a problem for Ubisoft, and that's one of the reasons I think there will be more, as they say, restructuring. That'll mostly be more layoffs, especially if they are indeed, as has been reported, looking to figure out some way of a buyout or investment, but find someone who basically is buying them, because I don't think that company, whoever comes in and buys them, is going to want to then also onboard 19,000 people. So one way or the other, I think it's going to be a mass exodus there at Ubisoft, and that's going to be a tough one to see happen. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and that Xbox Series S, which a lot of people point to as being a major problem for Microsoft, especially with the discussion around some studios, some developers having a hard time with it, and even keeping things like Baldur's Gate 3 apparently off of it when it initially came out, and then eventually Microsoft made an exception and co-op split screen was not available for that platform. Well, like Black Myth Wukong, that seems to be an issue with the Xbox Series S specifically. It's 10 gigabytes of RAM that's available there for the system. And that's kind of been the thing, is that the big issue for Microsoft getting some third-party games, because the resources that are being devoted to making it run there, it still isn't working out necessarily. Well, if the stats are to be believed, it might actually be like a 50-50. Okay, Xbox Series S, 50% of sales. Xbox Series S, 50% of sales. So let's just say it's 30 million. What's the Xbox Series systems out there right now for the ease of math? 15 million Xbox Series S. You're probably not going to leave those behind. And actually, Phil Spencer has a different view of this, which he discussed with Destin over on that in the interview with him on his channel, where he says, so when we look at something like a Steam Deck or ROG Ally or something, we've got this S version of the game that are more tailored to the device specs of a lot of devices that, frankly, are getting introduced right now, and I think that helps us. So he didn't outright name it, but okay, so we're talking about the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck. Where does your mind go then when it comes to portable devices that are playing these larger AAA games, these console games? you think of the Switch 2 as well. We hear the rumors around Microsoft being a big supporter of the Switch 2, and we'll find out more about that, I'm sure, after April 2nd, or who knows, maybe on April 2nd. Is it possible that Phil Spencer walks out on stage and talks about Microsoft's commitment to Nintendo's next platform? I don't think that'd shock anyone if that happened. It would look weird at first, especially when it says, takes a look at this, and then Master Chief's on screen, but I don't think that's anything that would feel off now, especially with Microsoft's direction. So in a way, sure, having S versions of these games that work on the 4 teraflop Xbox Series S with 10 gigabytes of RAM versus the 12 teraflop and 16 gigabytes of RAM Xbox Series X, yes, that should scale a bit better and be a bit easier to move over some of these lower power devices, like the ROG Ally, like the Steam Deck, like the Legion Go, and yeah, eventually like the Switch 2. So it's interesting to think of it in that way because, yeah, a lot of companies would be targeting PS5 and up, and now we have the PS5 Pro, and they're kind of working in that direction as opposed to working down to the Series S or eventually porting over, making some compromise there for the Switch 2. Almost a way for them to get a bit of a head start, I guess, on Switch 2 development, which I'm sure they're deep in right now anyway. So different way, I guess, to look at the Series S, kind of forcing Microsoft first-party studios and some third parties optimizing a bit further, which will then benefit them, I guess, in the long run with some of these other platforms that are releasing right now. And in our last bit of news, let's quickly talk about SEGA Forever, which, if you don't know what this is, I don't blame you. This was in 2023 when it shut down at the end of 2023. And before that, it wasn't advertised great by SEGA, and it also wasn't a great service. So it seems like after it was discontinued, maybe SEGA went back to the drawing board. We've seen some recent delistings of different games, almost like they were preparing to take another shot at a subscription-based service with legacy titles from their brand. And now something's happened here, a bit of movement in the background that is continuing to lean into this. We can see this posted up though. This is over on Time Extension. It says the SEGA Forever Twitter account regularly posted high-resolution artwork from the company's vault, and one of the last things promoted before it went dark in 2023 was the amazing restoration of the Sonic statue that used to stand in the London branch of SEGA World. But now, as spotted by Mastered Realm on Twitter, the SEGA Forever account has been rebranded, which suggests that it's about to be revived. However, at the time of this writing, no new posts have been made. So, sort of at the top there with the banner, it looks like things have been changed out. Also, the icon. And before that, it has been dormant since 2023. All of a sudden, they're changing branding up. It's interesting. Yeah, it does sound like maybe they are prepping for a new subscription service. It would technically still be SEGA Forever, but maybe they took it offline to refine and figure it out. It was just kind of weird because it was sort of like they streamed the games kind of to you for authentication, and it didn't work great. Also, they launched it specifically for iOS and Android. I get the idea is these are older titles, 16-bit, 8-bit era, that kind of stuff. So it would work fine to stream it for phones, and there's a lot of people there. But if you really want to get this, I think, a lot of traction, you gotta look to PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. That's the core audience that will at least recognize a lot of this stuff right away and might be inclined to maybe subscribe to check these games out. I say maybe because we have a lot of subscription services as it is, so you have to have a very, very compelling reason to subscribe. So maybe they have some plans, and maybe it really is just quantity, but also they're kind of involved with Nintendo Switch Online, so that would be kind of awkward unless they have stuff that's not on NSO, like Dreamcast. Who knows what the plans are there, but at least right now, something seems to be setting up here around SEGA Forever, so we'll keep an eye on it. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, which is one of the semifinals for Game of the Year Madness. We can see it is indeed Astrobot versus Indiana Jones, The Great Circle, and look, Indiana Jones had a great run. It really did. But Astrobot is a force for 2024, and it continues its ridiculous run, 72% to 28% from what I'm seeing here at the time of this recording. And I mean, it's not a shocker to think that Astrobot would be in the finals, and it looks like it is about to roll through here. And what's going to happen, we'll have today, the poll will go up for the other side of the bracket, which will then line us up with the finals, which will run for 2 days. So it'll just be 2 days of voting there with, at this point, Astrobot versus either Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Metaphor. And then after all of that, we'll see who ended up winning Game of the Year Madness, which, by the way, it would get done in 31 voting days, technically. So about a month. That's actually pretty good. That literally leans into the idea of Game of the Year Madness, deciding all of it with community votes in 1 month. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from LX Cass on YouTube. Says, my local GameStop shut down 2 to 3 weeks ago, so I can't get a pre-order in person. Yeah, that's the other thing that I thought about this a little bit after I said that. I said, you know, I can't guarantee that everyone else's GameStop is even going to be around when the Switch 2 comes out from pre-order. From April to, let's just say June, when the Switch 2 comes out, 2 months later. Can't necessarily guarantee that GameStop will be there, although I'd like to think they have some awareness of saying, hey, we're not going to take pre-orders because we're going to be gone in a couple of months. It wouldn't shock me if GameStop said, oh, don't worry, we'll transfer that to the other GameStop that is 50 miles down the road. Then it does become an inconvenience. So I get that. At this point, I went from like 6 GameStops in my area like a couple years ago to now just 2, and one's in a mall. So yeah, I understand that. The GameStops are dwindling in the area. I just need them to stick it out long enough for the Switch 2 to get in stock with my pre-order so I can go pick it up there in store to make it way easier than trying to fight bots and scalpers online, because let's face it, we know that's going to be a nightmare. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you had about 2 hours to kill and wanted to listen to some banter and discussion around video games from last week. I'll actually leave the Spawncast right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.